Yo guys, what is up? Here we are with another reading video, and today we are on chapter 7 of The Boys Who Challenged Hitler by Philip Hoos. Make sure to leave a comment if you want me to read new any Christmas books. Picture, obviously. Because if so, I can definitely figure out a way to do that. And maybe you'll even see a face reveal. Maybe. Maybe. Anyway, without any further ado, let's get right into it. Chapter 7 The Boys Who Challenged Hitler by Philip Hoos. Whipped Cream and Steel. By the spring of 1942, Aalborg, with its airport and harbor, had become a way station for many thousands of German soldiers headed to Norway to safeguard shipments of iron ore from Swedish mines to German factories. Hitler also used Aalborg as a place for German soldiers to rest and recover from battling the Soviet Union on the savage Eastern Front, where fighting had begun the previous summer. Oh, and if my voice sounds weird, it's because there's a ton of smoke outside, and I was outside a lot today. Okay. The Eastern Front of World War II saw conflict on a colossal scale beginning in June 1941 when Hitler's army invaded Russia. The campaign pitted European Axis powers led by Germany and Finland against the Soviet Union, Poland, Norway, and other Allied forces. It was the largest scale military confrontation in history. There were ferocious battles, marked by wholesale destruction and immense loss of life due to combat, starvation, exposure, disease, and massacres. Of the estimated 70 million deaths attributed to World War II, over 30 million, including civilians, occurred on the Eastern Front. Any German soldier pulled from the Eastern Front to rest and recover in Aalborg had to count his blessings. Day by day, German soldiers streamed in and out of the city. Many were bound for Norway, sleeping a few nights in makeshift barracks set up in schools and churches until they were ordered onto transport ships. Each soldier was armed, and each weapon was now an object of interest to the Churchill Club. The boys in the club soon found they were just as good at stealing weapons as they were at arson. Getting guns was no trick at all, one of the boys later recalled. We'd accost soldiers after a parade or at a railway station. While a couple of us engaged them in friendly conversation, the other would steal the rifles they'd propped against a wall or bench. Ned Peterson. Day by day, our arsenal of stolen knives, guns, and bayonets grew. We hid them in the monastery basement and went down to check on them all the time. Our parents never caught on. Mother and father were alarmed by my sliding grades, but they were happy to see me make new friends and probably took it as a good sign that we all spent so much time in the monastery rather than at someone else's house. Germans kept arriving in Aalborg. The rows of vehicles that lined the streets grew longer and longer. They seized the best hotel in town, the Hotel Phoenix, as their command center. At the docks, we observed hundreds of German soldiers marching down to Aalborg Harbor and lowering themselves into the bottoms of old freight ships bound for Norway. As much as we hated the Germans, it was hard to not have a little feeling for the common soldiers heading off to battle. Many of them didn't seem much older than us. When a ship was fully loaded, a net stretched over the top of the hull so the bodies wouldn't come to the surface. The vessel sunk by torpedoes from British submarines lying in wait just beyond the Limfjorden. In fact, it became unpopular to eat hornfish, which were green, because it was said they got their color from drowned German soldiers in green uniforms. We spent a lot of time at the docks, straddling our bikes, arms folded on the handlebars, squinting out like hawks for weapons left unguarded by German soldiers boarding their boats. Sometimes soldiers would lay their weapons on the ground within our reach, and we would snatch them like gulls after crumbs. Their naval officers were always waving their arms and shouting at us to scram, but they never shot at us. We would flee full speed and come back in due time. The focus on weapons simplified our work. We knew what we were after. We became bolder. One day, a few of us saw a German officer's car roll to a stop in the middle of a downtown street. The exasperated driver jumped out of the cabin and stormed around the front to crank the engine back into life. As he was cranking, Boris ran to the car door, grabbed his bayonet hanging from a peg inside, and walked away. It wasn't just small weapons we were after. We had big eyes, too. One of the evenings, several cycled over the Limfjorden Bridge to Norrensburg with the goal of destroying an aircraft cannon. The Germans called it a flat cannon. It was boldly positioned on the harbor embankment, its great long barrel thrust towards the sky for us all to see, but for all its self-importance, it wasn't guarded at night. Our plan was to hoist it out of its box-like foundation, carry it down to the docks, and heave it into the Limfjorden. We had gotten it out of its box and had just become comfortable within the weight when we heard a guard whistle. We dropped the the monster and scattered. The threat turned out to be an ordinary Danish cyclist. Chewing at our guard for alerting us so little, we returned to the box and lifted the cannon again. Staggering, we got it halfway down to the dock before we heard another whistle. This time it was a German guard, and we could see the barrel of his rifle sticking out of his pack as he carefully made his rounds. That was it. We dropped the cannon, pranced away towards our bikes, swearing loudly at the Germans, using crowbars and hammers to smash the window of their building as we left. He heard us, of course, and gave chase. He turned out to be great shape. We ran for our lives, ditching our bikes, with the guard bellowing at us to halt and firing shots in the air. That night we stayed in Norsbrundi rather than risk the bridge. The next morning we sneaked back to retrieve our bikes. Late in March, the boys stole hundreds of cartridges for their new rifle from a cargo delivery truck at the train depot, by far the best place to find ammunition. They continued to take pistols and bayonets from loosely attended touring cars and open-window barracks. Ned Peterson. Restaurants were the ripest of all pickings. The Germans had free run of downtown Aalborg, and they really took it over. Booted, helmeted, and heavily armed, they shot for meat, vegetables, wine, and tobacco alongside ordinary Danes. It was hard to be at ease around them in a small shop, or to defend your position in line against armed goons. Merchants who sold to them were reviled as many by as traitors. The storekeepers didn't care. There was money to be made. Our occupiers were crazy about the local taverns and restaurants. Danes were famous for their pastries, and German officers soon discovered the conditori pastry shop, Christine. Regarded as the finest in Aalborg, Christine was famous throughout the city for light, delicious whipped cream cakes. Men of the Third Reich removed their hats, hung up their coats and weapons in the cloakroom, and settled into red padded sofas until they were called to their tables. The officers then slid into highly backed, upholstered wooden chairs, placed their orders, and smoothed fresh linen napkins over their laps. This surely beat the Eastern Front. One night, 4 of us slipped past the receptionist at the front door and found our way into Christine's unguarded coat room at the top of the staircase. Hanging on the racks was a jungle of fine woolen coats, sleeves sticking out. Hats rested on the shelf above. Some commanders had draped their holstered belts over the hooks as well. It was our great hope that some holsters would contain German pistols, called Lugers. 2 of us took one side of the closet, 2 the other, thrashing through the heavy wool waistcoats as fast as we could. Every now and then someone would find a gun belt with an empty holster, but success was elusive. The others had already gone back outside when my fingers came to rest around a gleaming black pistol. I was turning it over in my hands when I felt someone pushing through the coat sleeves in my direction. I slipped the gun into my pocket and backed out past as a German officer with a polite smile and a little bow. I was gone before he could react. Moments later, I was surrounded by the other 3 Churchill clubbers out in the street. What happened? Only this, I said. One by one, they thrust their hands into my pocket and felt the grand prize. When we got back to the monastery, I tossed the shiny black Luger and 2 full magazines onto the table. The club's biggest triumph of all came as a matter of good luck and persistence. One afternoon, the boys were riding out by the harbor when none noticed 2 Germans standing on an observation platform and looking out at the harbor below through binoculars. About 50 meters behind them was a barracks building with a couple of open windows. Nud skirted behind them and pedaled up close to the building. There, through the open window, was a machine gun in plain view on a cot. The boys had no automatic weapons, so this would be a new dimension. In many ways, the job looked like the rifle heist, but there were important differences. Ned Peterson. Even from a distance, the machine gun looked way too bulky and heavy to transport on a bike. Also, the 2 lookout soldiers were dangerously close to the barracks, but at least we would see where they were. Porge and I returned to the monastery and got a 3-wheeled bicycle with a cart on the back. We pedaled it back to the harbor and ditched it as close to the barracks building as we could. Then I went through the open window and handed the heavy semi-automatic weapon to Borge. I was about to climb back out when I noticed 2 canvas bags in the room, one bigger than the other. I figured the heavy one must contain ammunition, so I passed it out and we took off. We got down to the bottom of the hill and we then crashed the 3-wheeler, spilling the gun onto the road. We looked up behind us, terrified, but the soldiers were still intently focused on the harbor. We took the stuff to a nearby Boy Scout hut and emptied the contents of the bag. The gun was magnificent. There were many bullets, but there was one problem. There was no magazine. The chamber that holds a supply of cartridges to be fed automatically to the gun. Without magazine, the bullets could not be delivered to the weapon, and the bloody thing was useless. At our after-school meeting, there were howls of laughter. Great resistance men you are. Just what we need, a bullet collection. But it brought to light once again the naked truth. We had no experience with weapons. Most of us didn't even know what a magazine was. We decided it was unsafe to go back for the magazines, so they'd surely be on the lookout for whoever stole the weapon. We'd have to chalk this up to experience. but I couldn't stand it. I went back the following day and snatched the other canvas bag, which indeed contained the magazines. There was also a coffee cup in the room that hadn't been there the day before, and a box with the word cross-stucken written on it. I figured cross-stucken meant gunpowder or something. I grabbed it too and hauled it back to the monastery. When we pried it open, hearts racing, we saw dirty underwear. Cross-stucken was the name of the soldier who lived in the room. By mid-April 1942, the club had amassed an arsenal of knives, bayonets, pistols, rifles, and of course the machine gun. With no military training and no one to trust, the boys struggled to learn to shoot. Ned Peterson. Each Sunday morning, Jens and I practiced shooting the guns in the gigantic open loft at the top of the monastery during Father's church services. We would lie on our stomachs, waiting for the organ music to swell, and when we did, we'd blast away, firing at targets positioned in the hay on the other side of the loft. The machine gun was a Schmissizer, a weapon that German forces had used to shoot thousands of innocent people during the war. It came with a tripod. A setting allowed you to fire one shot at a time, which was helpful in our circumstances, when a hymn could suddenly subside or end altogether. We never tired of handling the weapons. Several times, shots discharged by accident while we were just messing around someone's room, nearly ending it all for one or more of us. Egil accidentally put a bullet through his trousers one afternoon in Jen's room. Luckily, the bullet missed his leg, and there was no one from the rest of our family home to hear the explosion. By the end of April, we had about 20 weapons in all, and 432 bullets. We divided up the bullets. I got 112. We all had our pistols in our pockets now when we went on our missions. But these weapons were returned to the monastery at the end of the day. One of our main rules was that no one could take a weapon into the school. We knew that if the police caught us with a German weapon, it would be over. After a while, it seemed insane to keep the entire arsenal in one place. We decided to divide the cache, start stashing part of it in the monastery and part of someplace far else. Helge Mila, who lived in a nearby suburb in Northbury, volunteered to keep some of the weapon in the family's guard. It was an appealing idea, except that we would somehow have to transport the weapons past the Linforden Bridge with its guard checking checkpoints at both ends. The one we had crossed to do the Fuchs job at the airport a month or so before. No one could come up with a better plan. So one evening we packed Helge with weapons for the monastery, taping pistols to his torso and stuffing his clothing with ammunition. We were done. He stood back and looked at him. You could see the outline of a rifle through his trouser leg. The machine gun was under his buttoned jacket, causing him to bend almost double over the handlebars when he got on his bike. The ammunition was concealed in boxes beneath the coat on the luggage rack. It was the best we could do. We posted 3 Churchill Club members on either side of the bridge. Nervously, we at the monastery pushed Helge off and watched him weave his way towards the bridge. His first wobbly strokes made him look like a child just learning to ride. From time to time, he had to get off the bike and walk a few steps with rifle-stiffened legs. It was clumsy for him to reboard. That didn't look good. What would happen when he got to the heavily guarded bridge? What if he was asked for an identity card and searched? Somehow, he cleared the first checkpoint. The 3 clubbers awaiting him at the Northbury side at first mocked his hunched-over position and stiff look as he approached, but their laughter died quickly as they too realized that this was serious and perhaps a decisive matter. The Churchill Club trios at both ends of the Linforden Bridge held their collective breath as their comrade Helge, packing hard-won assets, tottered up to the second guard station on the far side, paused, and was waved through. Somehow, he made it. And that is the end of Chapter 7. I hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, make sure to leave a big thumbs up, comment down below, and don't forget, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you guys in the next video.